Ni billion. That is how many individual M&Ms roll off production lines every single day. Each one measures exactly 1.04 centimeters across, weighs precisely 0.91 grams, and carries 6 to 7 separate layers of sugar applied 1 micron at a time. The process that produces them runs for 12 continuous hours and begins with 3 ingredients that look completely unremarkable. Here is how 375 kilograms of raw ingredients, milk powder, cocoa, and sugar, become 1 billion candy-coated chocolate pieces through a 12-hour precision manufacturing cycle. The process starts in a weigh station before anything is mixed or heated. Each batch calls for exactly 200 kilograms of granulated sugar, 100 kilograms of whole milk powder, and 75 kilograms of cocoa powder. These 3 dry ingredients are loaded in sequence, not simultaneously, because the ratio must be exact to within 0.5% before the batch is cleared to advance. At this stage, the materials are still loose powders with no resemblance to chocolate. The transformation begins the moment they enter the first machine. The dry blend feeds into a 5-roll refiner, a vertical stack of 5 hardened steel cylinders, each one weighing several hundred kilograms, rotating in opposing directions under hydraulic pressure. The gap between adjacent rollers is set to progressively narrower tolerances, from roughly 100 microns at the first pass, down to under 20 microns at the final roll. The mechanical shearing action breaks down sugar crystals and cocoa solids until the particle size of the entire mixture falls below 25 microns. At that scale, individual particles are finer than talcum powder and invisible to the naked eye. This matters because particle size directly determines texture. Anything above 30 microns registers as gritty on the human palate, while anything below 20 microns produces a perception of smoothness. The refined powder then moves into conching tanks, cylindrical steel vessels with a working capacity of up to 3,000 liters each. Inside, hundreds of stainless steel balls and internal paddles rotate continuously, generating frictional heat that brings the mixture to approximately 49 degrees. At that temperature, cocoa butter within the blend begins to liquefy and coat the solid particles, but the mixture does not scorch. This phase runs for between 4 and 6 hours. During that window, volatile acids and bitter-tasting compounds, primarily acetic acid and certain aldehydes, evaporate out of the open vessel. The result is a measurable reduction in perceived bitterness. Partway through conching, operators add liquid cocoa butter and chocolate liquor to the blend. The final output is a semi-fluid chocolate mass, smooth, glossy, and homogeneous, with a fat content calibrated to flow correctly through the molding equipment downstream. The temperature window during conching is 49 degrees, plus or minus 2 degrees. That range is not arbitrary. Below 47 degrees, the cocoa butter does not fully liquefy, leaving the mixture too viscous to flow evenly through the conching paddles. Particle coating becomes inconsistent and flavor development stalls. Above 54 degrees, the milk solids begin to caramelize, shifting the flavor profile in a direction the recipe does not call for, and reducing the yield of usable chocolate mass by up to 15% per batch. The same temperature constraint applies to the molding stage that follows. The chocolate is pumped at 45 degrees Celsius into lentil-shaped molds, flat on one side, domed on the other, because that geometry is mathematically optimized for uniform shell coating later in the process. If the chocolate enters the molds above 47 degrees Celsius, it does not set cleanly at the edges. If it enters below 43 degrees, it begins to solidify in the transfer lines before reaching the molds, causing blockages that require a full line shutdown and a batch loss of up to 500 kilograms. The molds rotate continuously during cooling to maintain even distribution of the chocolate as it contracts and hardens. Each piece exits the mold at exactly 1.04 centimeters in diameter, and 0.91 grams, a tolerance held across millions of consecutive units. Once demolded, the chocolate lentils travel by conveyor into the first of two coating stages, sugar shelling. The pieces drop into large rotating drums called panning drums, each holding several hundred kilograms of product at a time. The drums rotate at a fixed speed, typically between 12 and 18 revolutions per minute, while an overhead nozzle system sprays a controlled quantity of sugar syrup across the tumbling mass. After each spray application, a flow of warm air at approximately 35 degrees C circulates through the drum for a set dwell time, evaporating surface moisture and allowing the syrup layer to crystallize into a hard, thin shell. The cycle then repeats. Each individual layer measures only a fraction of a millimeter in thickness, but 6 to 7 complete cycles build up the full sugar shell that gives M&Ms their characteristic snap. The total added mass from shelling accounts for roughly 30% of the finished candy's weight. The geometry of the drum rotation is engineered so that every piece tumbles through the spray zone with equal frequency. No piece sits in a dead spot and receives fewer coats. Uniformity across the batch is verified by pulling samples after every 2 cycles and measuring shell thickness with a calibrated micrometer. Any batch where the standard deviation in shell thickness exceeds 0.05 millimeters is flagged for review before it advances to coloring. The coloring stage uses a second set of panning drums, called color pans, where the same spray and dry cycle is repeated, this time with pigmented sugar syrups instead of clear syrup. Up to 10 separate color applications are applied per batch to build the final hue to the correct saturation and opacity. The color formula for a standard bag of M&Ms is not left to chance. 25% of pieces are blue, 25% are orange, 12.5% are red, 12.5% are yellow, 12.5% are green, and 12.5% are brown. These proportions have been maintained since Mars standardized the color mix in the 1980s, following the removal of red M&Ms in 1976, a decision made not because the red dye used in M&Ms was unsafe, but because a different red dye number 2, was found to cause tumors in laboratory rats at high doses during a 1971 study. Mars voluntarily pulled all red pieces from production to avoid consumer confusion, even though their own formulation never contained red dye number 2. Red M&Ms did not return to shelves until 1987, after the company confirmed that the replacement colorant, Red 40, had a clean safety record across multiple regulatory reviews. After coloring, the pieces enter a finishing drum, where a thin coating of food-grade glazing agent is applied. The agent is most commonly derived from Carnauba wax, a natural wax harvested from the leaves of the Coppernicia prunifera palm, native to northeastern Brazil. Each leaf yields approximately 10 grams of wax annually, and the trees are harvested during the dry season, between July and September, when wax content in the leaf surface is at its peak. The wax is extracted by drying and beating the leaves, then refined and bleached to food-grade specification. Inside the finishing drum, soft brushes polish the wax coating against the candy surface, producing the high-gloss finish that makes M&Ms visually reflective and tactilely non-sticky. The polished pieces then pass through a high-speed inkjet printing line, where each individual candy receives the lowercase white M logo. The printing system operates at speeds that match the full production throughput, up to several thousand pieces per minute per lane, using food-safe white ink applied in a single pass. Registration accuracy is maintained by optical sensors that orient each piece before it enters the print zone, ensuring the M lands centered on the flat face of the lentil within a positional tolerance of plus 0.3 millimeters. Following printing, every piece passes through a high-speed optical scanner. The scanner checks simultaneously for print quality, shell integrity, color accuracy, and dimensional conformity.
Any piece that is cracked, misprinted, off-color by more than a defined spectral threshold, or outside the 1.04 centimeter diameter specification is rejected by a pneumatic ejector and diverted to a separate stream. Rejected material is not discarded. It is reprocessed into the chocolate mass at the conching stage, recovering the full ingredient value. The acceptance rate on a well-calibrated line runs above 95%.
The color verification step in the optical scanner uses spectrophotometric measurement, rather than simple RGB camera imaging. Each piece is illuminated by a standardized light source, and the reflected spectrum is compared against a reference profile stored for each of the 6 approved colors. The acceptable deviation from the reference is expressed as a DE value, a unit from the CIE color difference system, and the rejection threshold is set at DE greater than 2.0. A DE of 1.0 is approximately the smallest color difference a trained human observer can detect under controlled conditions. A DE of 2.0 therefore represents a difference that is perceptible but minor. Pieces that fall outside this range are rejected because color consistency across bags is a measurable quality attribute that MARS tracks at the production lot level. The same scanner system has been in continuous development since MARS introduced automated color sorting in the early 1980s. The first generation systems used analog photocell arrays and could only distinguish between gross color categories. Current systems resolve spectral differences at 10 nanometer wavelength intervals across the visible spectrum, from 400 to 700 nanometers, allowing detection of dye concentration variations that correspond to differences in syrup application of less than 0.1 milliliters per cycle. This level of sensitivity means that a drum running even slightly low on colorant syrup, producing pieces that are visually close to correct but measurably off, will be caught before the product reaches packaging. 1 billion pieces per day. Across a full production year, that is approximately 365 billion individual M&Ms. A number that, if the candies were laid end to end, would circle the Earth's equator more than 1,400 times. The single facility in Hackettstown, New Jersey, MARS's primary U.S. production site, operating since 1958, processes hundreds of tons of chocolate mass per week across multiple parallel production lines. The factory floor covers an area equivalent to roughly 14 football fields. The raw cocoa supply chain that feeds this volume connects to growing regions across West Africa, where approximately 70% of the world's cocoa originates, primarily from Côte d'Ivoire and Ghana. MARS sources cocoa from an estimated 100,000 individual farming households under its Cocoa for Generations Sustainability Program, which launched in 2018 with a committed investment of $1 billion over 10 years. The finished product has a shelf life of 13 months from the manufacturing date under standard storage conditions, below 21 degrees and below 50% relative humidity. This stability, combined with the absence of crumbs and the sealed individual packaging, is why NASA has included M&Ms in astronaut food supplies since the Space Shuttle program. The caloric density, approximately 480 kilocalories per 100 grams, and the portability of the format make them a practical energy source in environments where food handling is constrained. Each 45-gram single-serve bag contains roughly 216 kilocalories and, by design, exactly the same color distribution as every other bag on the shelf. The final packaging stage runs at speeds of up to 200 bags per minute on automated filling lines. Each bag passes through a combination of volumetric filling and check weighing. The machine deposits a metered volume of candy. Then a precision scale verifies the actual weight against the declared net weight. 45 grams for single serve, 200 grams and 400 grams for larger formats, with a tolerance of +1 gram. Bags that fall outside tolerance are automatically diverted before sealing. The sealed bags are then laser-coated with a batch number, production line identifier, and best before date, providing full traceability. Back to the specific production shift and ingredient lot. Finished bags are collated into retail cases, typically 24 units per case, which are palletized and transferred to temperature-controlled distribution centers. Mars operates a cold chain specification of 16 to 28 wardeguan throughout distribution to prevent bloom, the surface discoloration that occurs when cocoa butter migrates to the surface of chocolate and recrystallizes. A bloomed M&M is safe to eat, but fails the visual quality standard and would be removed from shelf by store-level quality checks. Retail pricing varies significantly by market. In the United States, a 45-gram bag retails at approximately $1.50 US. The global M&M's brand, part of the Mars Wrigley confectionery segment, generates an estimated $2 billion US in annual retail sales across more than 100 countries, making it one of the highest revenue individual candy brands in the world. Roughly 1.5% of finished production, based on industry standard defect rates, is downgraded or reprocessed before it reaches retail, representing several million pieces per day that never make it to a shelf. 12 hours of processing, 6 to 7 sugar layers, 10 color applications, and a spectrophotometric scan accurate to DE 2.0, all to produce a candy that weighs 0.91 grams. The number that stays with you, roughly 1.5% of 1 billion daily pieces, around 15 million M&Ms, are rejected or reprocessed every single day before a bag reaches a store shelf. What other mass-produced food or consumer product would you like to see broken down at this level of detail? Drop it in the comments below and subscribe to the channel so you do not miss the next one.